Steve Bowers welcoming you to Studio 6 along with Rod Hurt. Rod, it's good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Going to do some history today. Of course, history is kind of a relative thing. We're doing this program in 2023. People that vote in our city election this year will have been born in 2005. We know a few things before 2005.
Yeah, a few.
A few. We're going to go further back today. So for some, this will be history today.
Of course.
All right. And we're glad to get into this. So what are we doing? Who are these folks and what do we do? We're calling this...
we're doing, I guess, a celebration. What it is I had an idea that we should put together a thing that we're celebrating black quartet singing in rural West Tennessee. And what the situation is, when I started in music, I started out playing with gospel quartets. And the people that we're honoring today are some of the guys that I could call trailblazers. These are guys that were already singing in established groups here in Madison County and the out-of-line areas. And matter of fact, some of those guys sang with groups that recorded local records back in the 70s and the 80s and so forth. And I happened to be at a local benefit about a month ago out in Denmark area at a church, and all these guys were there performing with solo singing just to do work with the benefit. And so I got the idea. I said, look, I wonder could I put something together to kind of honor these people, because these are the guys that were there when I started out in gospel music at 16 or 17 years old playing the guitar. And these guys were already involved in established groups, and they recorded records, and they're still doing it today.
I want to find out about the people with whom they worked and the recordings that were done at the churches and places that you play and all this other stuff. So it's going to be a trip back in time here.
Right.
Like I said, for us, it's all memory. But for some, it'll be history.
Right, and I'm very
Something
excited.
that they have not ever experienced. Who have we got featured today as far as our vocal?
Featured today, we have Reverend Lee Harvey. Also, we have Mr. Robert Scott and Mr. David Taylor are our featured vocalists. And hopefully, as soon as we get cranked up with the music and get a couple of songs on there, I bet we'll be able to come in and
talk to
regular bread and talk.
Yeah, we want to talk together. And then performing with you today,
musicians? Our musicians on bass guitar is Mr. Al Wilder. On rhythm guitar is Mr. Floyd Springfield Jr. And on drums is Mr. Brandon Gibbons.
All right.
All from Jackson.
We're going to the days of the quartets.
Right.
Where you started.
That's where I started, right here. The first group that I worked with back in the early 80s was the Sunset Travelers of Henderson, but they were all based here in Jackson. And I was probably about 16 years old at that time. And I played with another quartet called the Spiritual Crusaders from Brownsville, Tennessee, as well. But I've had a long road of just wherever music is, I've always kind of shown up.
It's kind of been my life.
Right.
If they pay you to talk, I've always tried to be there.
Okay, I got you, yeah.
Wherever that might be.
I just like to say, I don't mean to cut you off, I'd like to say that I'm very grateful for you allowing me to pitch this idea and for us to put this particular show together, because this is honoring the legacy of Madison County and the surrounding area. We have a rich history in gospel singing.
Well, it's something we at E Plus TV6 have been excited about. The time you came here with the idea, we're glad to be here. We're going to clear out of the way, find these brothers, and we're going to find out what we do together, right? And then we're going to talk together.
Right.
And we're going to explore the history of gospel music right here in Jackson, Madison County, and West Tennessee on this special edition of Studio 6.
All right. We're here today, and we're going to go back in time, and I'm going to do a song. Actually, it's the first song I've ever learned how to play on a guitar. We're going to do a song by the Sensational Nightingales called I Want to Be at the Meeting. Well, I want to be at the meeting. I want to be at the meeting. I want to be at the meeting when all things get on. Church after separating of the right and the wrong. I want to be at the meeting around the throne. After separating of the right when the saints go marching home. Trouble will be over, sorrow will be gone, and we will have a meeting around the throne. I want to be at the meeting. I want to be at the meeting where Jesus is. I want to be at the meeting when all saints get home. Church after separated, all the right and the wrong. I want to be at the meeting around the throne. When I get to Jordan, I walk Jordan like a man. God's Almighty, I'm bucking my sword and sticking in the golden sand. I've talked to God the Father, talked to God the Son, and then we will have a meeting around the throne. Oh yeah, I want to be at the meeting. I want to be at the meeting. I want to be at the meeting where Jesus is. I want to be at the meeting, and all things get on. Church after separating, all the right and the wrong. I want to be at the meeting around the throne. When I get to heaven, I meet my mother there. God Almighty, here come my child. You must God hear my prayer. I'll be at home and singing a brand new song. And we will have a meeting around the throne. Whoa, yeah. I want to be at the meeting where Jesus is. I want to be at the meeting. I want to be at that meeting. I want to be at the meeting when all saints get home. After separating, all the right and the wrong. I want to be at the meeting around the throne. All right, we're going to feature Reverend Lee Harvey on this next song. It's an old song. Hopefully, the audience will enjoy it.
Oh, Lord, show me the way. You know we need you down here, Lord. Oh, show me the way. Lord, I'm down here, Lord. Lord, and I need your power. Come on, Jesus, and show me the way. Can we do it one more time, fellas? show me the way. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh Lord, show me the way. Lord, you know I'm down here, Lord. Lord, and I need your power. Come on, Jesus, and show me the way. Listen, son of man, you gon' need Jesus when you come down to die. You better believe you're gonna need him before you close your dying eyes. But while the blood is running warm in your vein, Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you right now. Come on and show me the way. Listen. Lord, I know that I'm your child. I know it for myself. Oh, yeah. Lord, I know that I'm your child. Show me the way. Yeah. Oh, show me the way.
Welcome back into Studio 6 and our feature presentation. Rod Hurt has put this together on gospel music and gospel quartets in West Tennessee. We're glad to have Rod with us, and then Reverend Lee Harvey is with us, and then David Taylor is with us, and then Robert Scott. It's good to have all of you here. In putting this together, you picked these gentlemen how?
Well,
Hold that microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I've known them for quite a long while, since I was a teenager. Like I said earlier, I started out in gospel music when I started playing guitar around about 16 or 17. And all these guys were singing with established groups here in Madison County. And they were kind of like, I guess you could say, idols of mine, because they were already working musicians in the gospel circuit. And matter of fact, some of them went on to record local records, and they played on radio at that time. And that was kind of an inspiration. So when I ran back into them about, a few weeks ago, they were doing a benefit program, and something came to me and just said, you ought to see if you put these people together and capture this, because, this is something, they're still doing it after all these years.
Reverend Harvey, how did this start for you? Gospel
It
music.
started so long ago, I can't even remember. No, it started with my dad being a quartet singer.
Okay.
And
Who was your dad?
My dad's name was Lee Harvey. I'm the junior.
Junior, okay.
Yeah. So he started me out by taking me with them on programs that they had. They had a group here in Jackson, Tennessee by the name of the Friendly Four Gospel Singers. They traveled all over the South and probably some in the Midwest, but most of the time it was in the South. But he would take me in the car with them. They had a brand new Plymouth. Don't nobody know what that Plymouth is.
All right, so Plymouth.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And they would go to different places all over singing. And I loved every minute of it, and so it just kind of sunk into me. And now that it's in me, I can't hardly stop doing it.
Okay. So you started with what group?
I started with actually the Dixieland Singers. Well, actually, I started with with Robert and some more guys, but I don't think Robert. Were you singing with the group at that time? He was. Okay, but anyway, mainly it was the Dixieland Singers, okay. And we traveled all over. We went Midwest. We went up into the Connecticut's. We went all up in Vermont. We went all up in D.C., all out west to California, because they were a very, very, very good group. Okay. And I played guitar at the time. I didn't do no singing. Okay.
Were they work churches or what? Or what were the venues?
It didn't matter. The venue didn't really matter. It just we did mostly churches, but it was we had a lot of auditoriums and things of that nature.
Who was in that group? You remember?
Yes, sir. I do remember. There was a guy by the name of Willie Moore. We called him Bro Willie Moore, and he was a cab driver here in the city of Jackson for over 50 or 60 years. Wow. Then there was Lord Nicholson. Then there was Sammy Cox. And there was also James Bunn and Melvin, Melvin Turner. Melvin Turner. He played bass, I played lead. And the drummer, we actually had one of the Mercer guys playing for us back in those times. That was Dwight Mercer. Okay. And a lot of people didn't even know Dwight played drums, but he actually played.
Did y'all do any recording?
Yes, sir. Good Lord, the Dixieland. Yes, we did. We recorded several records. At that time, they was doing 45s. And I say we probably recorded about at least 20.
Okay. Where did y'all record?
Where?
Where? Mm-hmm.
In Nashville.
Okay. You remember the name of the studio?
I think it was Nashboro.
Okay.
If I can remember correctly.
Okay. All right. David, how did you get started in this?
Well, I got started at a real early age. I started, my first group was the Stars of Dixie, and I was in my teenage years. And as time went on, Mr. A.B. Scott, he got this other group together called the Faithful Heirs. And that's the group that we sung together for about 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and we travel all over, and it's just no place we didn't go. And we started doing the 45s. And if somebody might could help me, I think it was Styles record company in Memphis. I think that they was doing the 45s. Okay. And we did about maybe 7 or 8 45s. And then we went to Melico Records. And that's when we did the Gloryland album. And on that album, that we did a lot of travel, because the songs that was on there were really original songs that we did ourselves. And there were some songs on there that we just changed the beat, changed the rhythm and all of that stuff. And it did it the Faithful Heirs way.
Okay. Who was in that group, David?
Our manager was A.B. Scott, Bobby Anderson, Chris Hunspun, Henry Louis Gray. Help me, Robert. Eddie Faison, Frank Faison. There was some more.
In 40 years, there had to have been one or two more.
Yeah, that was a lot of guys came, but those are the guys that basically stayed there the whole time, and we traveled so much back then, we just got old and tired, and we said we would just kind of ease back off a little bit, and they still play our records sometimes, and but we had a ball when we were singing, man.
David, when y'all recorded, you said first in Memphis and then with Malaco. Where did you record in Memphis? Do you remember?
I think like I said, I can't remember exactly. Lee, if you can, do anybody remember Styles? It was on Beale Street.
Okay.
Yeah, it was on Beale.
You had something you want to say?
Yeah, I'd like to say that the song that I really remember, The Faithful Heirs Doing, was very popular in the early 80s, was Just Over in the Glory Land. Their arrangement is something about it. It's very soulful, and there's always been a favorite of mine by that group. And that's what I remember them for more than anything, is that particular song.
Y'all getting airplay? Was there stations playing?
I guess that's why.
This is word of mouth.
Word of mouth, and that was contracts offered, but then we just did the word of mouth. We didn't want to do all of the travel and all of that, and I was a mama's baby. I wanted to stay close to mama. And a lot of opportunities that we just didn't do.
Yeah. Well, you talked to people who lived on the road. You made the wise decision.
Yeah.
You made the wise decision.
That's right.
Robert, how did you get started in this?
Well, I got started about 6 years old with my mother, my sister.
Tell me about her.
They passed me by, and so I started with another group, starting in elementary school for the community. We had one going, and as I went on to high school, I started with another. Finally, I started with the Heaven Bound Juniors in 62, I think it was. And it was a great experience.
Who was in the group? Tell me about the group.
It was a great experience because then they was trying to see who could sing the highest. And they was trying to find a place on the guitar that I couldn't sing with. So it was just a challenge from then until, well, I guess a few years back, they quit. And if we would start naming about how many people there was in the group, you could get you about like an encyclopedia. You had to do a lot of reading. But anyway, we're still together somewhat. And that's where we are now.
What has it meant, Reverend? What's it meant in your life to be involved in this?
It meant the world to me because it was a legacy that I was doing because my father had been doing it for so long. My dad was I call it a Lightning Hopkins, Muddy Waters type guy, and he played that kind of music, Sleepy John Estes music, and all of the old blues singers that you could probably think of. My dad had some affiliation with them. But when he got into the gospel, he kind of changed over a little bit. He went to a thumb pick and started rapping a little bit. Changed the whole thing over. And then what drew me into it is that I was watching him. My dad could really, really sing. I can't sing nothing like my dad. Dad could put it out there. He could do baritone, tenor. He could do them all. And I admired him so much, it kind of grew in my crow. And that's where I am with it now.
Still are. David, what's special to you about all this? What has it meant to you?
What's special?
Yeah. What has it meant to you in your life?
Oh, man, it meant the world. Sometimes I think without a song, without me singing, how could I make it? It just means that much to me. I grew up under Mama. I stayed close to her and listened to conversations that she would talk to me and this kind of stuff. And we would sing, and somewhere in that song, I would do something that Mama said or something that she taught. And it just keep me going today.
Okay. Robert, what's it meant in your life to be involved in this music?
Well, I guess the greatest accomplishment I guess I thought I had in this singing business was that when my children came along, they began to want to sing too. And after the group had so many people to come, so many to go, and it was down to just about 2 or 3 of us. And then that's when my children came in and told me, said, if you want to keep singing, we'll help you.
Okay.
So that started back when they were, I think my son was in high school, and the girl was too. And they came in, they was going to help until we find enough to carry it on with just like we had been.
Okay.
And to carry it on like we had been ended up with being my children, me, and about 2 or 3 more. And now it's down to 6 of us. So we're still trying to carry on.
All right.
Yeah, my son, my daughter-in-law, and the other 2 brothers that joined us, they called me their uncle. So I guess you could say it's a family thing, but
What's the name of the group? The name of the group now?
Heaven Bound Juniors,
Have Bound Juniors. kept
they
the
were
name.
the juniors when I joined them, and they was juniors before because they was following Lee Harvey dad and their dads. It all just came down that way.
Pass it
so-
on down.
They asked me a lot of times, I've been asked that question, why are you still juniors and you're just about gone out of the earth? We're still here being juniors.
Well, I guess that name will work forever, right?
It will. It'll be there forever.
It'll just continue. What we got coming up?
Well, we're going to do a few more. We're going to do several more selections. But I'd like to say before we change the subject that quartet music has been very special in my life. It has a profound effect on me because the sound of the guitar in quartet music, it was just something that was kind of mystifying and something that drew my attention. And it caused me to want to learn how to play a guitar. And then when I started getting involved in learning how to play, I started listening to the lyrics and listening to how the harmonies and all these things, and that really had such an effect on me spiritually that it caused me to want to join the church. And that's what I think that's the effect of quartet music in general. You know, regardless of what style of it I think it has had a profound effect on people. It's just something.
My
about the
grandfather was
sound.
in a quartet, Harmony Haven Quartet, they called it in North Alabama. But they had a piano.
Right.
They didn't have a guitar. You know, it's a different instrumentation. I guess it was just different styles.
Right. I think from some of the research that quartet singing started with the barbershop style quartet at the turn of the 20th century. And I think that was just a thing because, you know, they didn't have televisions and radios. They had to have some form of entertainment. So I think that's kind of how a lot of it got started.
Barbershop quartet, the quartet keeps all the money. They don't have to pay anybody to play. That's right. Right, get to keep all the money. That's right. We're going to let these guys sit up and do what they do best, and we appreciate Rod putting this together. We'll continue in just a moment with more of this special edition, focus on black quartets and black gospel music, Studio 6.
Yeah.
Walking with Jesus.
A closer.
Walking with Jesus.
Walk with thee.
Walking with Jesus.
Yeah.
Walking with Jesus.
Grand.
Walking with Jesus.
It's Jesus.
Walking with Jesus.
If you.
Walking with Jesus.
You please.
Walking with Jesus.
Stay.
Walking with Jesus.
Stay walking.
Walking with
close
Jesus.
to thee.
Walking with Jesus.
Yes.
Walking with Jesus.
Let me walk.
Walking with Jesus.
Father.
Walking with Jesus.
Close to thee. I
Walking with Jesus.
am weak, but
Walking with Jesus.
thou art strong.
Walking with Jesus.
Father, you know
Walking with Jesus.
you ain't
Walking with Jesus.
keep me
Walking with Jesus.
from all wrong.
Walking with Jesus.
Yes,
Walking with Jesus.
I will
Walking with Jesus.
be set and
Walking with
fat
Jesus.
and long.
Walking with Jesus.
Yeah,
Walking with
take
Jesus.
me walk.
Walking with Jesus.
Father,
Walking with Jesus.
close to thee.
Walk with thee.
When
Walking with Jesus.
this fever
Walking with Jesus.
life is
Walking with
over,
Jesus.
yeah,
Walking with Jesus. Walking with
time
Jesus.
for me
Walking
won't
with Jesus.
be no more.
Walking with Jesus.
Do this,
Walking with Jesus.
girl,
Walking with Jesus.
be safely
Walking with Jesus.
to that shore.
Walking with Jesus.
Yes,
Walking with Jesus.
trying to make,
Walking with Jesus.
trying to make
Walking with
it
Jesus.
to that shore.
Walk with thee.
Now let's do this. Come on,
Walking with Jesus.
come on,
With Jesus.
come on,
With Jesus.
walk with.
Walk with Jesus.
Come on,
Walking with Jesus.
let's walk with.
Walking with Jesus.
If you know He's been good,
Jesus.
good to
Walk
you,
with Jesus.
you ought to walk with.
Walking with Jesus.
Before we go into
Walking with
fun,
Jesus.
stay,
Walking with Jesus.
stay
Walking
with,
with Jesus.
stay,
Stay with Jesus.
stay on the
Stay
battlefield.
with Jesus.
Don't throw in the
Stay
towel
with Jesus.
when things,
Stay with Jesus.
things get
Stay
hard.
with Jesus.
Stay,
Stay with Jesus.
you got to tell.
Stay with Jesus.
I got to do it. I got to stay with him. He brought me
Stay with Jesus.
all the
Stay
way.
with Jesus.
He brought me,
Stay with Jesus.
take care of me.
Stay with Jesus.
Stay,
Stay with Jesus.
stay.
Stay with Jesus. Stay with Jesus.
shout hallelujah forevermore. I
I'll pray.
I'll pray.
Keep praying.
I'll pray.
Yeah.
I'll pray.
Thank you, Jesus.
I'll pray.
Thank you, Jesus.
I'll pray.
Lord, I thank you.
I'll pray.
Lord, I thank you.
I'll pray.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll pray.
Yeah.
I'll pray.
Yeah.
I'll pray. All right. Amen.
And I,
Oh, when the morning comes, when all the saints of God are gathering home, we will tell the story how we overcome, and we'll understand it better by and by. Yeah, by and by. By and by. Oh, when the morning comes, when all the saints of God is gathering home, won't it be good to tell the story how we overcome, and we'll understand it better by and by. I remember the old folks, and by and by, oh, when the morning comes, when all the saints God be gathering home, we will tell the story just how we overcome, and we'll understand it better by and by. I never will forget. Seems like they was in a choir saying by and by. Oh, when the morning comes, when all saints of God go gathering home, oh, we will tell the story how we overcome. I never will forget it. We said we'll understand it better. I never will. Seems like they would get happy to say by and by. Oh, when the morning comes, when all the saints of God go gathering home, we will tell the story just how we overcome, and we'll understand it better by and by.
Welcome back to Studio 6 as we continue our focus on quartet music, black gospel music. Rod Hurt put this show together, and we're joined by David Taylor and by Reverend Lee Harvey and then Robert Scott, and continue to showcase this music. Reverend Harvey, you had mentioned that your father kind of a Muddy Waters kind of guy and all that other kind of stuff, and you played this, and Rod played this music well. You said your father changed the guitar style a bit when he got into gospel. Big clash between blues folks and gospel folks, or at least it was when I was growing up. You know, that blues folks didn't feel like they belonged in that gospel business. And the gospel folks said, you're exactly right.
Right. They had that attitude, but
Yeah.
the music seemed to kind of.
Well, okay, well, hold the microphone. That's what I was going to ask.
Maybe I said music. The people
Because
had
today we
the
have all kinds of, we have rap artists that do gospel music, and they say, well, it's the lyrical content is what makes the difference. It's not the beat of the music or whatever. Is that it, or is there a difference?
Well, really, in the early days, the guitar was an instrument that was very, I guess you could call it transportable. It was a portable instrument that you could carry just about anywhere
you're right.
and play in a lot of places. And a lot of churches in rural areas didn't even own pianos and all these things, so they would either sing a cappella or maybe, I guess, with a guitar or something in those early days. But there was a separation between secular and sacred, and they really frowned on a lot of the secular music. But it tended to cross over anyway, and you know, I think it has gotten to a point now that the only difference between some of the gospel music and some of the so-called, I guess, rhythm and blues or blues is the lyrics.
Lyrics, yeah. I was
And the
just
rest of the notes are just about the same.
because you played all, and you've played.
Right.
Yes. But let me go back a little bit further.
All right.
Mostly I would say the quartet actually originated in the cotton fields.
All right.
And people would get together and they would be picking cotton, chopping cotton, and somebody would strike out a song. And man, you'd be surprised how far it would go. It would go from one field to the other. And the harmonics would just build up. Now, speaking of quartets that had guitars and stuff, they didn't have them. All they had was they would do that and stomp the
Okay.
feet and holler hallelujah. But they really didn't have any music, but the acoustics was so good in the older churches, they didn't even have microphones. And a person could do a quartet, would come in and sing, and when they got through, they was just hoarse because they was trying to out-sing over the people. But a lot of times back in the days, though, that guitar gave them that extra push. Then, as it went on a little bit, the drums was added. Then, as it went on a little bit more, the keyboards, the organs, the keyboards, the pianos was added. But at first, all they had was their foot stomping music, foot stomping, and finally, when everything materialized and moved on, they had the quartet. It evolved. It shot up. And most of your quartet singers that was down here in the South went northernly, like to Chicago and places of that, Detroit, and established great groups. And so they would come back from in Chicago and Detroit and California, the Mighty Clouds.
Okay.
They would come through Jackson, and we would see what they were doing. And we picked up on their styles, what they were doing in order to make that quartet singing even better.
The Mighty Clouds of Joy you mentioned, were there other groups that stand out to you that you heard, or?
They were, but the group that I mostly was the Soul Stirrers out of Chicago, Illinois. And that was, I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy by the name of Johnny Taylor.
Yes, okay.
Johnny Taylor, Sam Cooke.
Cook, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
All came out of that
all
gospel.
those guys, they were tough. They were tough.
So they all came out of that gospel root.
Yes,
then.
sir. All of them had that beginning.
I would take it that in those small churches, then the audience would pick up the right.
Yeah, but,
You wouldn't have to do it by yourself.
but you know, it would get so dusty, you get choked out.
Got that going on. You know,
Yeah,
and so-
yeah.
But fundamentally, then because like you say, these great R&B singers and blues singers, whatever, they come out of church origins. Most of them.
Most
many
of them.
Most of them.
Yeah, they did. And the ones that you really find that came from the Mississippi area, the Alabama, Louisiana area.
Okay.
Now, a lot of them, they're deceased now, but that was like Memphis, Tennessee was the melting pot.
Okay.
Sitting right on that Mississippi, up and down that Mississippi, they would come. And that music was big time in Memphis. That's how Beale Street got so popular.
Well, and look at it. Were there other influences today? Were there other groups that you listened to, or Robert, that you heard where you say,
Oh, yeah.
I want to be?
Violent Airs, Gospel Keynotes,
Okay.
all of those.
Were they from here or?
No.
They were elsewhere.
Violent Airs, they was from Detroit.
Okay.
Gospel Keynote, they was from Tyler, Texas. And, but as Lee was saying, they would always come through. And because when we was singing and traveling, we used to see them from other states and all that. We got familiar with them pretty good in our travel too.
Yeah. Robert, there are people that influenced you, that you heard, or?
Well, most of them, like the old Dixie Hummingbirds and the, what was that foreign name? I can't think of all the names now. I've had a lot of birthdays since then.
We all have.
That cuts down on the memory. But
Speaking of,
anyway, but I've always loved it
Yeah.
because I couldn't never play an instrument, but I wanted to, so I just tried to make an instrument out of my mouth. So
That works.
I did what I could with that.
All right.
speaking of the Dixie Hummingbirds, they had a harmony style similar to the, some of the new a cappella groups like Take Six.
Okay.
And modern groups like that, they had the same
Okay.
vocal harmony. And matter of fact, that particular group, I think, influenced people like the Temptations. They had, those were the forerunners of what we call the quartet singers of today. The Dixie Hummingbirds were one of the key groups that started out early, that made records.
Records.
Right.
They were from where?
I'm not sure. Do you know
Dixie
what
Hummingbirds.
Where were they
New
from?
York.
Okay.
New York, okay. So it goes
But
everywhere.
they had a very complex harmony at that time.
Okay.
That was comparable to
We also had a lot of groups that was in Jackson, Tennessee during the era of the quartet, especially back in the 50s. I didn't know anything about them, but I kind of met them later in years. And my dad told me a lot about it, but Brother Emmett Washington sent a letter, and he named some of the groups that were organized back then. And I told him, Brother Rod asked me if I would read some of this letter,
Sure. Yeah.
if you don't mind.
Oh, that'd be great.
It says, the Friendly Five organized group of Jackson, Tennessee was organized by Mr. Emmett Washington Sr. That was Emmett Washington Jr.'s dad, the guy that was supposedly to be here today.
Okay.
Later years, Mr. Washington became a member of the Gospel Five singing group of Jackson, Tennessee, and later he went on to the Friendly Four. That name keep popping up again.
Right,
That
yeah.
Friendly Four, where my dad was the guitar player, and they had a man by the name of Mr. S. Hobson. S. Hobson. He was their manager. And he was the kind of fellow that if you wasn't doing nothing, he was going to say, come on now, let's hear it, let's hear you.
Okay.
The Jackson Spiritual Travelers was a new group originated in the year of 1975 by Brother Emmett Washington. There he is again, but he's sick, poor fella, and the Reverend John Reeves. Later, a second group of the Jackson Spiritual Travelers, which was Brother Emmett Washington, Brother Charles Wallace, Brother James Mays, who still remain as the original members in the year of 1980. Reverend George Smith was added, then Reverend Lee Harvey Jr., yours truly, became a member in the year of 1981. Brother Charlie McDonald and his son, Tim, was added to the group. The remainder of that year, 1982, the final addition to the present group was Emmett Washington Jr., Brother Harry Edmonds, Brother Bobby Manley, and Brother Sidney Williams. And I'd just like to add that we cut an album, we cut some 45s, And most of the album, it was a young man down in, his name was James Mays. He lives in Memphis, Tennessee now. He and I, we would sit down and put some tunes together. And James, he was a great writer, but he never got any influence like me. No, but that group was good, but there was another group. It was called the Gospel Writers. The Gospel Writers. And that group, they had a bass singer, that Brother Reed. He was a lead bass singer. He was a lead singer plus a bass singer.
Wow.
And I used to love to hear them sing that song about sit down servant. Sit down and rest a little while. Oh, just sit down. And then the bass would come in there and say, oh, yeah, sit down. I can't bass.
Okay, you did well.
The how much of this material was? Did y'all write any of this material, or just pick it up?
Yeah.
So you're writing a lot of your own material then,
Yeah.
which is a whole different business.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So where'd the ideas come from?
Top of the head.
Mine doesn't work that way, apparently, right? Yeah.
Well, you know, things that you see, that you hear, and places that you go, sometimes it affects you, and whatever you see, you normally write it. And if you put it together pretty good, especially when it comes down to singing the gospel about the Lord and the things that he has done for you, and things that he's doing for you, it really, 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 really captivates what you come out with because of what the Lord has done for you.
Faith keeps us going in adverse circumstances.
Yeah, it does.
And that's always been the odd thing, because, you know, it's like, I sure would like to get an answer to why all this is happening, but we're never going to get that on this side, on this side of life. So it was like somebody said about blues music, said, well, why, if you're feeling bad, would you want to hear a sad song? I said, because it makes me feel better.
Well, I think it reinforces your experience.
Okay.
I think that's what happens. If somebody can write something that it actually pinpoints what you've actually experienced, then you can relate to it. I think that's what happens.
Identify with it.
Right.
So it's a matter of. Now, you mentioned y'all traveled in a Plymouth at one time.
That was my dad. That
Your
was
dad,
the friendly
yeah.
four. Yeah, they had a brand new 1951, I believe it was. That thing was pretty. Woo.
Well, those cars were big in those days, too.
Yeah. And see, I could sit on the floor.
Yeah,
And
okay.
all these guys, because it was like I think 7 or 8 of them in the group, and I would sit between my dad's, sit between his legs, and they were, oh man, they were big time.
Yeah.
They were big time. I thought they was anyway.
Yeah. Well, cars that time had a full bench seat, front and back.
Yeah.
Didn't have any, yeah.
Oh yeah, I could have rolled out there on the hood. Have been out as long as I was riding.
My dad, I asked him one time, I said, he had 10 brothers and sisters. I said, what was your first car? And he said, well, your granddaddy got a 27 Chevrolet. And I said, well, where'd everybody ride? He said, well, in everybody's lap. And he said, and your Uncle Basil, he was old. He said, he rode on a running board. So he was hanging on that running, standing on that running board. I said, that'd get everybody arrested today, wouldn't it? Get everybody arrested. And y'all traveled extensively.
Oh yeah, I've been all over.
Okay. Are there other names of people we need to mention or groups, Rod, before we want to make sure we give credit to?
It was just a big, long list of quartets that performed that were from around these surrounding towns. All these surrounding counties had quartets. That was just, like I said earlier, I thought about the theme that when quartet was king, this is the program, this is the theme of our program, because that was just a big thing. Quartet music was very popular, and in every community, somebody probably had a quartet.
Has that changed?
Oh Lord, yeah.
Yes. Choir music has gone and come back and gone again. Quartet music has kind of come back around full circle. It's kind of like a cycle, I guess.
On a Sunday afternoon and a Sunday night, when people say they had gone to their services that day earlier, and somebody said that they were going to have a gospel singing. My Lord. People would show up. And also, back then, way, way back, they didn't have no air conditioners. And
Windows would be up.
that's right. They let those windows up. People be hanging in the window trying to listen to what the quartet singers were singing. Not only that, but they had a program somewhere every Sunday night within the range of this area. Within a 50-mile radius, you could find a quartet singing. I mean, some great quartet singing. And people showed up.
Talking about those open windows, I remember when I was a kid, had those open windows. And that way the men could stay outside and smoke and still hear the preacher.
Yeah, right. But the smoke would come through the window, though.
Back. Of course, you had the ones that stayed there in the amen corner on each side. You know, had a few, you know. But some of the brothers, they used that as a privilege, you know. The men could sit outside and smoke and still hear the preacher, they'd say.
I promise you. I promise you.
Back in the days. And so so you say it comes in cycles still.
I think.
Of course, the culture has changed, and what people do for entertainment's changed.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Air conditioning, everything else changed, all that, right?
But like I said, you know, I think it goes in cycles, and that's most music. I know probably in the late 60s, early 70s, choir music became very popular, especially in black gospel music. People like the Edwin Hawkins singers, and all those people, they were popular.
Yeah.
They kind of modernized contemporary gospel music. And then, like you said, some of the groups they named, like the Violinaires, they kind of modernized the Violinaires, modernized quartet singing, and it's just, you know, things have just gone, you know, full circle, I guess.
Yeah. David, you said you had something you want to say? Or?
No, that was some of the. It's real strange, and every singer, every group basically had their own style of singing, and you know, basically a lot of songs that we did was just out of experience, conversation, like the song that Rob was mentioning a little earlier, Glory Land, and that was done in 1982, and on the radio it's still being requested today. I guess more now than it did when it was first made.
Right. Yeah.
But it came out of conversations that I had with Mom. And then in the studio, when we did this, it was no paper, just conversation. I would get off work and go home and sit on the porch. Mama would come out, and we would just sit down and talk. And I would go and I would reminisce about conversations that she and I had. And that's why the song Glory Land came from, conversations that she sat down and talked to me about her experience in church. And that's just a way of life back then. But then, like I said, I was so close to her, I just remembered everything she would say.
Comes a record, comes a song. Rod Hurt put this all together. Our thanks to Rod Hurt for sharing this time and experience with us. And to Robert Scott, thank you, Robert, for being here. Reverend Lee Harvey and David, it's good to meet you. Good to have you with us.
And I'd like to say, once again, I really appreciate you allowing us the opportunity to come here and present this program.
It's an honor.
Because I think it's just greatly needed, because some of the conversations that they've had today, these are things, some of that information is totally new to me. And I think that our area, we need to record this for history so we'll know what actually happened in times gone by.
It's brought back. Like I said, my grandfather was in a quartet. He taught shape note singing, you know, all this stuff. You know, we go to churches or they'd set up schools, whatever, do shape note singing, all this stuff. It's all out there. Very, you know, of course, when I was a kid, just like with y'all, it was a segregated world out there. But it's a similar, I hear these stories, a lot of similar, like churches with the open windows and funeral home fans, all that stuff. Just
Right.
a lot of memories out
Yeah,
there.
you found out a lot of things are pretty common and pretty close
well,
together.
music has always been one of those. Music has always been one of those things, I think.
Right.
Speaking of music, one more time, give credit to the guys that are
Okay.
performing here today.
I'd like to say once again, I want to thank all our guest vocalists, Mr. David Taylor, Reverend Lee Harvey, Mr. Robert Scott, and also our guest musicians, Mr. Al Wilder on the bass, Mr. Floyd Springfield Jr. on guitar, and Mr. Brandon Givens on the drums. All from Jackson.
It's such a unique and special opportunity. I thank you, gentlemen, very much for sharing this time.
Thank you.
And all of you. And so we're going to clear the deck here and get out of the way and let them do what they do best as we continue this special focus on gospel music. What was it? When gospel was king.
When Quartet was king.
When Quartet was king. When Quartet was king on this edition of Studio 6.
Have you ever been burdened? Have you ever been sad? Have you ever been lonely? He'll make you glad. He'll take away your sorrow. He'll ease your pain. God will do everything He said. Have you ever been burdened? Have you ever been sad? Have you ever been lonely? He'll make you glad. He'll take away your sorrow. He'll ease your pain. God will do everything He said do. Is that all right?
All right.
I said, is that all right, fellas?
All right.
I met God one morning. I met Him with a smile. He threw His arms around me. On me as His child. Yeah. Have you ever been burdened? Have you ever been sad?